Some of the things we've looked at is district enrollment, and I think we're a little over 30,000 now. I think Irene's school, you have over 800?
825.
25, and I'm not sure of the enrollment at Diablo View Middle School. It's probably somewhere over 900.
No, I don't think it can be that high. It's only built for 800.
Do you know?
A little over 600.
Yeah, so that sounds right.
A little over 600.
It was built for a max of 800 if it was absolutely packed. And the intent was never to have it anywhere close to that
Okay.
without additional building.
Do we know projections of what may be coming in next year for the kindergarten?
Or not Diablo Elementary School.
Yeah.
You know, our kindergarten enrollment, apparently for the last few years, has, when you start registration, has been pretty low. I think it's around 80 or 90, but traditionally, what is it?
It's about 9.
It's about 90 now, so it's higher than it was last year at this time. But as it gets closer and closer through spring and summer, the enrollments increase. So I think last year we had just barely enough for 4 kindergartens.
It's projected at 107 students for next year.
I thought it was 117, but I think it'll be more than that since we're at 90 already.
So it is one of the bigger elementary schools in the district, that's for sure. It's not one of the larger middle schools, and it's a little on the smaller stuff. But definitely your elementary is probably one of the largest. Proud to say that your schools do very well. Probably some of the highest. I looked at your last year's scores. Yours are over 900, 917 or something like that. And higher than that. It was 924?
921? 921?
And then the Diablo View is 894. That's the total API, the Academic Performance Index. So again, those are 2 of the highest performing schools in the district. So that's a congratulations to your community and your parent community and your teaching community. They really do a good job. Even with the large elementary school, goodness, they do a wonderful job. Anybody want to?
You know, somewhere in there, and I'm looking to Dr. Meyer, the assessment changes and the state reporting, when we say API now, and maybe you can just share what's going to happen with state assessment and school mission.
They plan to keep the title API, even though they're going to change the formula completely. So when we see our next year's scores, they'll be completely different, well, actually a year after next year, because this year we're piloting the test, we will not have any scores, so we will keep the same number that we had last year. But when that change happens, we'll see a shift in how they weight the formula. So they're developing it currently, they haven't completed it, so we'll be sharing that with schools and getting that information out to parents as it arises.
And maybe you could clarify, Dr. Meyer, because that question came up with me today, but it came up previously, that since this is a piloted test this year, there will be no scores released at any level to the district level, or there won't be any scores?
No, and I was asking, and I didn't hear the answer I wanted, so I asked again, because we won't receive any scores other than the ones that we take internally. So the state assessments will go back to the state, and they will then look at it to determine how well we were equipped. And then they'll compare it to last year's somewhat to see the change. So this is really a practice test this year.
I guess that raises a couple of concerns. Many of the things that people look at when they evaluate where they want to live in a community is what are the school test scores? And if the whole structure is changing, how that relates to what they were before, especially if the numbers change dramatically, you know, on the scale, that's going to be something that's going to require a huge educational effort to get out to the public at large, not just parents and teachers and stuff like that. We're all going to have to understand that there's a new scale, and you know, the old 821 now means a 600 or something. I have no idea what it would be, but
You're right, it's the classic apples and oranges, and for that reason, they postponed it for a year, because typically when they put in these tests, they dipped in the first year. So you're absolutely right, we're going to look at some of the measurements we can still look at, but the public really has become accustomed to that 1 through 10, and then the number 1 through 1,000. So it will be a different year regarding that, most definitely.
well, keep us all posted so we
Okay.
can make sure that we all share the same language
Right.
as we educate the public.
And that's why I bring it forward, because house prices sometimes are geared, Mr. Keller, house prices, as he sells real estate, they're geared on that. And it's absolutely true that we have to keep people updated on what that means, so they don't see that they don't perceive it as performance is dipping in Clayton.
I think the strength though of Clayton is that your performance has remained relatively high for so many years in a row. To be able to explain that this is a different assessment and it's being scored however it's being scored, I don't even know, but you've had such a strong API score for so many years in a row that it really speaks well for your community. There hasn't been peaks and valleys. As far as Common Core standards, I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Meyer because Mrs. Locke, maybe they can talk about what Common Core is and how it differs and what it's going to mean to your students.
Well, just briefly, when community and business members were discussing with schools what they did not see in their entry-level applicants, they often cited they saw students who could not think critically, who could not communicate well, and could really not write effectively. And so with those three things in mind, the governors got together and decided to reach out to different educators and say, what do we need? How can we put these things together? And so as a result of many years of developing the curriculum, we're now going to have curriculum that will have performance tasks where you will be asked to do things from kindergarten on that are multi-layered. So I like to think about it as, in the past in math, you might have to just add. Well, now it's not exactly like the new math of the 70s, but it is, you're going to have to add, and then you might have to think about how this would be used in a real life situation, and then you might then do a third operation and explain it. So rather than just one operation within a problem in any subject area, you're going to have to solve problems in a different way. So that is really the short version of what Common Core is. And it also is designed so it will, K-12, it will build upon each other more with the subjects. Math and languages do that very well, but some subjects do not lend themselves to building knowledge. So that will be something that will